Thanks to some new scams being more prevalent on the Steam marketplace, Valve is actually adding in new scam prevention notifications and new features. They're going to hopefully prevent people from getting scammed by scummy developers, or I kind of struggle to call them developers, because really if you're a scammer, you're not a developer, you're just a scammer and a jerk. So, yeah, but they're adding in new features to make sure people don't get scammed. For example, if you are trying to trade items from a new game, it'll say, hey, by the way, this game is new. Are you sure you want to trade these items? And it will also say, if you haven't never played the game and it's not even in your library, it'll be like, hey, by the way, you've never played this game and you don't even own this game. Are you sure you want to trade items from it as well? And the reason for this is the fact that we've actually been seeing some games that make copycat items again, which was a problem quite a long time ago that Valve seemingly fixed, or maybe scammers just didn't use it. It seems like something that scammers would do, and maybe they have been doing it for quite a while. I don't use the Steam Marketplace, so maybe it's been a problem, and it's only now that it's getting some news coverage and actually becoming prevalent because Valve is actually saying something about it. So maybe that's the case, but I don't actually know. So there's that. Anyways, Michael here with another topic video. So yeah, Valve is actually making some new trading modifications to their marketplace, which they've been doing for quite a while. They've been trying to make it so that scammers can't use their marketplace to benefit, and they've actually been adding in new features to make sure that the gambling sites don't come back, which is good in general. Now, some people have been making the argument that this is because of their new policy, and when that new policy came out, which I did a video on it right away, and so I wasn't able to really talk about this in that video that I did, but if you're interested on my opinions on the open marketplace that Valve is kind of moving towards for Steam, you can end up checking out my video from quite a while ago talking about the issue to where Steam was no longer removing controversial games, I believe is what I ended up calling it. But my general opinions of that was pretty good, but it came down to the kind of mass media, mass game market or whatever, the mainstream games media and the larger YouTubers and stuff like that. Everyone seemed to hate it. Now, I actually like it because I think that it allows a lot of niche products to appear on Steam, and I think it has a lot of benefits, but my main complaint there is that Valve needed to actually do stuff to make sure that things like this didn't become a problem, to where scummy games didn't end up getting seen by people, to where scams didn't become prevalent and actually scam people. And it's not like Valve can really do much to stop it beforehand, but they need to have features in place to actually make sure that things don't happen in the future. And this is the problem that's coming on right now, and they're actually addressing it, which is awesome. I think they probably should have foresought this, and I think they should have had systems. Like I said, this has been a problem for quite a while, and so it seems like this is a problem they should have fixed by now. But I can't really blame the sheep for getting hunted by the wolf. I can. Or can I? So, yeah, I guess that's where I'm at with it. So when it goes into play, what scummy developers end up doing was what they're actually doing is they're making copycat items. Now, if you don't know what that means, basically there are really expensive items on the marketplace. And so basically there's cosmetics you can earn in Dota 2 or in Team Fortress or in Counter-Strike Go. And those are the main ones from Valve that I'm going to be talking about because those are the most prevalent with these kind of tradable items. But there's items that are worth thousands of dollars. And I say worth as in, you know, that's what the price is on the marketplace, and that's what people are paying money for it. I don't think it's worth that much. I would pay that much for a skin or something like that. But again, these are cosmetic items you can end up purchasing from other players. So you get them in game or whatever, and then you end up trading them with other players so that you can end up going into it. And the problem with this is the fact that on the Steam Marketplace, there's been a few people that have been going in and they've actually started copycatting items. So what they'll end up doing is they'll add in an item, and one of the kind of interesting points to this, and the reason why this is probably fixed, is Valve actually has a system to where they'll check for this when you actually submit your game onto Steam. But I guess what these developers were doing, which there was two games that I saw recently that news sites were talking about, and this was a game called Absoluter or something like that. Not Absolver. Absolver's a good game, so don't look at Absolver and think that. I saw some people saying Absolver, and I'm like, that's not Absolver. Absolver's a good game. Go play it. No, this is like Absoluter or something like that. It's like some scummy little game that did not look worth playing. And then there's another one called Climber, which is easy to remember because it's just a single word and whatever. But neither of those games look good, and they're obviously just shovelware thrown onto Steam for various reasons. And one of them actually was kind of aimed at for being possibly a Bitcoin miner as well, which is another issue that Valve is going to have to address in the future. They need to add that into their anti-malware and stuff like that kind of scanning that they do beforehand. It's pretty rare that that stuff happens, but again, they need to actually look at making sure that that's not a thing. Although, I guess you could technically argue that maybe they want it to be a miner because Bitcoin miners and cryptocurrency miners could actually be used as like a counter to free-to-play microtransaction systems, which I think is an interesting argument, but nobody's actually done it yet. And so, yeah, maybe not. Anyways, that's a whole different topic, and I'm getting way off bounds. But basically what they've been doing is they added in a bunch of items that you could end up trading on the marketplace. And so these were just games or items from the game, supposedly. I don't think they were actually in the game. I think that Valve needs to actually have a system to where these items actually need to be available in the game or something like that. Again, maybe you don't want to limit your audience, but they were basically collectible items. And so there were collectible items from these games, but what they ended up doing is it had a bunch of troll images and stuff like that, and you could actually look up on SteamDB on the changes they actually ended up doing. And what they ended up doing several months after the game had already been out is they changed the image of the item. They changed the description and they changed the name of the item, and they made it exactly the same as these really expensive TF2 items and these Dota 2 items. And they would constantly be changing it, and they would change various different items, so people would end up thinking that they're buying a really expensive item because they look on the marketplace, it has the same image, same name. The only thing that was different is the name of the game. And so you'd look at it, oh yeah, and the price, of course. So you end up seeing this $1,000 item or whatever. You're like, oh my God, that looks like that. And you see it for $1, and you're like, oh my God, I should pick that up before somebody else does. You know, you're not necessarily 100% looking at the name and stuff like that. And this is a scam that happens all over the place. And so this isn't necessarily exclusive to Steam. And so it's not like, oh my God, it's only going to happen to Steam users. It's something that happens in literally every single marketplace. And so it's not exactly exclusive, and it's something that a lot of people end up falling for in a lot of different other markets as well. But again, this is a problem that Valve needs to end up addressing. So what they're doing is they're making it so that basically, one, if you're trading a game from, or you're trading an item from a game that is new or whatever, it's going to make it so that it actually tells you like, hey, by the way, this game is new. Now, these games aren't necessarily new. They're several months old, and yet you still get the notification when you try to trade items from the game. And so we don't necessarily know what new means, or if it's some kind of verification system. I assume, given the other things that I'll talk about in a second, this is some sort of verification system, and so they're adding in new verification systems I'll talk about in a second. But they're also making it so that if you've never played the game and the game isn't even in your library, it'll also show a notification. Now, that's a good step, and this is more than most marketplaces put in place for this. eBay, for example, has a bunch of these scams going on, and it has been a problem for years, and a lot of people fall for them. And so they actually have these sort of scammy systems going into play, and there's not really much people can do about it other than be careful and make sure that what they're trading is actually there. The difference is that they actually have some sort of money-back guarantees and kind of protection systems that go into it, because that is primarily what it is. I don't know if Valve is adding in any of those, but what they are also adding into is making it so that you have to verify when you end up changing the name of your items. Again, like I said, they've had these sort of systems in place on their algorithms when you actually add games to Steam, but for some reason they didn't exist afterwards, and so they were able to go in, add in these scammy items, and then just change them to whatever they wanted, and so they could actually end up scamming new people constantly, which was obviously a continued problem. And so when you go into it, it's kind of like in their verification process. So yeah, when they want to actually change names, they're actually making it so that you have to actually verify it with Steam, which I don't know if they're going to use algorithms. If they use algorithms, this could end up having absolutely no effect whatsoever and just become a problem, because you can always trick algorithms. Maybe they end up replacing an I with a 1 or an L with a 1 or something like that, and they can end up doing stuff like that. And again, that's something that you're supposed to be keeping your eye out for on marketplaces in general, and so it's hard to blame Valve specifically for it. Again, this isn't a problem unique to the Steam marketplace, but every major marketplace has something in place to prevent these things from happening, and so Valve needs to add in things to do that, and that's what they're doing. Now, they do say that they are adding in other tools. I wasn't able to find any more sort of like verifiable information about all of that. They just said that they're working on other tools to make sure that this type of stuff doesn't happen. And I assume what tools means in Valve's sense, they're adding in more algorithms to make sure they're checking games, and maybe they're going to add in some verification processes. I think it's weird that we have a verification process for Steam trading cards now, and games actually have to be considered valuable to actually have Steam trading cards nowadays, but you don't have to have that to actually add in items to the marketplace, which makes sense for the simple fact that every game is subject to those kind of new restrictions. And so when you go into it, you can end up looking at a new game, and then maybe it's a high AAA game and it kind of relies on the marketplace for its systems to work. Maybe you don't want to restrict that, but again, I feel like Valve should have more verification process to make sure that scummy games, again, aren't using the marketplace, because again, that is something that they shouldn't have access to, because they're going to use it to scam people. That's what scammers do. They use absolutely every avenue that they can. And so they need to have some sort of verification process, and maybe that's what they're working on. Maybe that's not. I don't necessarily know. We don't necessarily know what Valve is working on at any point in time, except for when they say, and we don't necessarily know exactly what they're going to do when they're actually talking about their systems. But I think it's a good thing, because in my kind of idea of what Steam is kind of aiming for, I think that the major thing they need to do is just, if they're going to open up the platform to absolutely everything, which has been the case for years now, basically, then they need to make sure to add in more systems to make sure people that aren't getting scammed, make sure that things are what they're supposed to be, and make sure that there's not a bunch of shovelware being shown to people on the Steam Marketplace. And so far, they've been doing a decent job of it. And it's been a while since I've actually seen this sort of stuff going up in the news. And when it goes up into the news nowadays, it's not about games being removed just because they're being removed. It's games being removed because they're scummy, or they're scams, or there's some other sort of system that's going into play that's making it so that people wouldn't want to purchase these games anyways, and developers are actually getting banned much more frequently, or at least it's being more prevalent. People have been paying more attention, at least, which I think that Valve has been doing this for a long time. I just think that now it's kind of popping up in the news because, again, a lot of the major news outlets have been kind of attacking Valve for opening up their Steam storefront. A lot of them hated it, and they're like, oh my god, now it's just going to be a bunch of shovelware, which, to be honest, once again, I did a video on it, so if you're interested in my actual thoughts on that, I did a whole entire video on it. But again, it's not like it wasn't already a place full of shovelware before then. And this policy, all of these games were added before the new policy came into play, and so these weren't from the new policy. These have absolutely nothing to do with the new policy, which is actually kind of annoying when I've been looking at information for this, because everyone's reporting is like, oh, because of their new policy, and like, no, this has actually been going on for months. Valve is just finally doing something about it, which is nice. So yeah, it's good to actually see Valve moving forward and doing more things with their platform and making sure that it's a safer place from scammers and stuff. And while it is kind of annoying that a lot of the marketplace is kind of being bogged down by all these scammers and stuff like that, like the kind of trading restrictions that were added in a few months ago because of scammers and things, yeah, it's unfortunate that it's kind of affecting everyone. But again, somebody poisoned the well. We're all drinking piss water now. So that's kind of unfortunate. So hopefully Valve can add in some extra filters to our taps at least. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. You don't necessarily have to comment for more content like this one. I'll be making it anyways. But again, you can end up commenting with your thoughts. I don't know why I have two different outros now that I just end up doing whenever I want. I'm supposed to say like and subscribe for more content like this one and then talk about comments, but I screwed up every time, and I'd like to point it out because I don't know what to do in outros anymore because people don't even watch them 90% of the time, so I try and make them interesting. And so yeah, game in the background has been Asphalt 9. I'm working on an early checking out video for it. I am not impressed. Asphalt 8 was better. Just outright better. It didn't look as good, but it was outright more fun and more enjoyable until they destroyed it with microtransactions. This game, oh my god, are the microtransactions ruining it. And it has energy systems for every car now, which has an interesting idea to where you can like it kind of forces you to use different cars, which I think is a good idea, but I think there's a million different ways it's not manipulative and bullshit that they could have used to end up doing that. So yeah, and it keeps popping up this type of stuff every single 5 seconds, which yeah, I'll check it later. I know multiplayer in this game is going to be pay to win because it's a mobile game. Yeah, but I have a bunch of mobile game videos going up this week, so if you're interested in that stuff, go ahead and subscribe for that. I don't know where the hell this outro is going, so I'm just going to say bye. Thanks for watching, like I said, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Also, it's like 1,000 degrees in here. I'm turning my fan back on.